Good evening or good morning, depending where you are as you've tuned into this evening's extraordinary event. My name is Dennis Kratz. I have the honor to serve as the director of the Center for Asian Studies at the University of Texas at Dallas. When we began the Center for Asian Studies in 2019, one of our founding goals was to be able to bring together scholars with both a Chinese and a Western perspective to together provide a balanced commentary on global issues. This evening or morning, we have the rare opportunity to achieve that goal with just one guest, one cosmopolitan, thoughtful, and authoritative speaker. Dr. Wang Huiyao pursued his graduate studies at the University of Western Ontario and the University of Manchester, both in the Americas and Europe. Meanwhile, he served as a senior fellow at Harvard's Kennedy School and a visiting fellow at the Brookings Institute. In China, he has held multiple high-level positions, above all as founder and president of the Center for China and Globalization. The author of numerous books, he has emerged as a leading and deeply reasoned observer of China and its ascending role in the world. Recently, I watched an informative and absorbing conversation that he had with the American political commentator, Thomas Friedman. And Dr. Wang is sought after for conversations and for his thoughts about the role of China in relation to the United States. And now we have the privilege of hearing him address the issue of United States-China relations in the context of global governance. On a personal note, we at the University of Texas at Dallas Center for Asian Studies are honored to have Dr. Wang as a member of our International Advisory Council. To welcome him, at least virtually, to Dallas, I am asking the chair of our council, my friend Dr. Hsuan Feng, to say a few words. Hsuan.
Good evening or good morning. I'm particularly excited and honored to have the opportunity to say a few words welcoming Dr. Wang Huiyao. I've known Dr. Wang. We met once in Taiwan when the first time, and I've of course followed his illustrious career in becoming a very important person speaking about global issues, especially between United States and China, mostly from the Chinese perspective, but usually also with a global flavor. His most recent conversations with Thomas Friedman, as also with Graham Allison, I think are two of the most remarkable examples of how our two nations should engage in conversations. So tonight, I think we will hear from him a very interesting perspective that we don't hear very much in the United States. So here we have Dr. Wang.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Kratz and Dr. Hsuan Feng, and it's really a great honor, extremely honored to be with you and your colleagues, and also the viewers online. And so good morning and good evening as well. I'm in actually in Guangzhou today, and yeah, and it's at the Nansha in Guangzhou. So, but it's really a great honor to be here. And I think the topic that Dr. Kratz and Dr. Hsuan Feng recommended to me is talk something about U.S.-China, and absolutely important that we need to have more dialogues. We have more exchanges. I mean, during this probably a difficult time, but also at the crossroads. So the topic I would like to talk about really the China-U.S. relations, but also how we can really work together on that. What I actually see now, for example, this year is the 50th year of anniversary of Dr. Kissinger break his first visit to China. And also it's the 50th years of anniversary of China joining the UN, basically come back to the multiple world. And also it's the 20 years anniversary of China joining WTO. So you can see for the last half century, and particularly for the last 20 years, China has changed profoundly, and China has really embraced the globalization. And I see that it's really, we have been seen many times over the changes taking place in China and with the world. So however, for the last number of years, I see that we also have some difficulties now, and with Western countries, particularly the United States. I think there's a lot of probably misunderstanding, and there's a lot of structural differences. As Daxuan said, I was hosting a dialogue with Tom Friedman, the World is Flat author, and basically we are saying that we need more understanding of each other, and also with Graham Allison, former colleague at Harvard. So how we can really to avoid the Houthis trap. So for US and China, we have actually established diplomatic ties for the last 41 or 42 years. So that's really the year of China opening up, ushered in by Deng Xiaoping, was in 1978. So in 1978, in December, November, December, China had its third plenum of 11th Party Congress, where at that conference, China decided to opening up. And on January 1st of 1979, China and the US established diplomatic ties. So you can see the strategic decision they made at the end of 1978, where China is, make sure to open, and then they established diplomatic ties on January 1st with US. It's not a coincidence. So I think that China embraced the world, and China is really really willing to work with the largest economy, and still the largest economy of the United States. And I see that this kind of open atmosphere, this open exchanges, and has created many results. For example, China now is the US largest student sending country. We have about 400,000 students study in the United States. And also China had a tourism. Before the pandemic, China every year has 3 million tourists visit the United States. And also US companies doing great business in China. We see the US company, hundreds of them, thousands of them probably working in China, and then generate over, billions of dollars of business in China as well. I mean, China is Apple's second largest market, is Boeing largest market, and also we see Tesla has a bigger, more than plant in China, has been generating great stuff. But also we see that China is already has a lot of investment on both sides as well. So the economic integration is enormous, and that's really created the world prosperity, I think. For example, China contributed over 1/3 of the global GDP growth, and China has been able to lift 800 million people out of poverty, which represents 70% of poverty reduction on a global basis. And China is actually ahead of the UN 2030 agenda, 10 years ahead of that time on the #1 priority of lifting poverty. So I think that somehow, of course, we are facing a lot of challenges now. What I think that happened is that, both China and the US are huge countries. We have a lot of differences, of course, culturally, historically, ideologically. And also there is normally, as Graham Allison has been saying, that, when the rising power is catching up with the ruling power, there's bound to be some kind of some conflict, but let's try to avoid that. So what I think is actually this got a bit deteriorated in the last 4 or 5 years, particularly I think since 2017, when the US has actually issued this strategic report that labeled China as a strategic rivalry. I mean, the first year when Trump took office in 2017, I mean, that was issued by the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster then. And he and I actually had a debate at the Monk debate in 2019 in Toronto with 3,000 audience. The topic of debate is that, is China a threat to the global, liberal global system? Which I definitely don't think so. And we actually managed to win that debate, even with not a big margin, but we actually, not convinced the audience on the spot that China is not. What I would like to say is that, that kind of a consensus has been built up in the last several decades. In the last several years, sorry, and then there are always some problem in the last several decades, but I think China and US has been able to manage quite well their differences. I think there's a bottom lines. There's sovereign issues and things like that. So what I think I'm really surprised to see. Actually, I'm a bit surprised that. So if China is not converged with US, as some people may say, that then that this relationship gets really deteriorated. But I think a lot of business, both in US and China, are not happy with that. A lot of students not happy with that. Tourism is not happy with that. So the topic, I think the challenge of today is how we can really maintain the relationship, and of course while we handle our differences well. What I see now actually is through the Alaska meeting and recently with the new Biden administration, I see some changes actually compared with what has been in the Trump administration. As I said, Trump administration labeled China as a strategic rivalry, and whereas I think I watched President Biden's speech at Munich Security Conference with heads of Atlantic heads of all the Western countries. Actually, at that conference, at that summit online, CCG and my think tank, our Secretary General, Dr. Miao, was invited to raise a question for the heads of the state there on the screen as well, with all the leaders there. And so we heard the Biden speech there, basically saying, okay, U.S. is going to work with the allies. U.S. is going to build up this, probably. More democratic form, and also U.S. is recognized as a competition with China, even fierce competition. He didn't use the word rivalry. He said competition, strategic competition. But he's also said there's a cooperation. He actually said that there's a cooperation. So I think that's a better word that he has been using, where I don't see in the Trump administration. So that's really I view that as a more balanced view. So obviously, big countries like China, US, there's bound to be area that there's a competition. There's an area that can cooperate. We're facing the whole world a lot of challenges. What I actually see President Biden did is quite forthcoming. For example, the first order he signed when he comes back to the White House, he resumed the climate change deal, and he actually also signed some kind of order that banning the use of ethnic or nationality language to refer the pandemic virus, COVID-19, which basically abandoned what Trump has been doing all along, calling China virus. And I think he sent an enormous friendly message to China at New Year's Eve, when he had the President Xi and the President Biden had a 2 hours dialogue on the eve of Chinese New Year. And also say Happy New Year to the Chinese. So I think that has been really well received in China, and also I think that they also the two heads actually had a lot of a dialogue. They've been knowing each other for many years. as they said, they are probably the longest, knowing the leaders and spend most of the time, quality time, while since they were both vice president. So I think there's some top leadership and standing there. That's why we had this Alaska meeting. Of course, the Alaska meeting, I think at the opening part didn't really go as all we expected, but I think when I dialogue with Tom Friedman, basically he said both sides need to clear their throat at the beginning, so there could be some harsh dialogue at the beginning. But I think what I can see, actually what I heard also, I read the statement from Chinese Foreign Ministry Affairs on their website, is that the closed door meeting probably went still okay and went well. They've been talking about many issues, and furthermore, we are very happy to see the former Secretary of State John Kerry, the special envoy of President Biden. John Kerry is visiting China actually, in the next few days, probably next week, and so we're really happy to see that. And I met Secretary John Kerry last year at the Munich Security Conference. He came to my roundtable where CCG was holding at Munich Security Conference, and he gave a very great speech there. So I think for the climate change, China and the U.S. has to work together. We cannot dodge our responsibility, and also maybe we should demonstrate some moral leadership for that, being two largest carbon emission countries. And so now come to so that's basically the opening of my this talk. What I want to say now is that where do we go from here? What do we assess the China-U.S. relation, and what can be done on both sides on the China-U.S. relation, and also on the future on the global governance, for example. So I think now probably the China-U.S. relation will not go back to the false illusions that we may have in the past, but maybe we should really think about this as great, how we can embrace these coming decades, and how we can really, seek the common ground and minimize the differences, and really try to be peacefully coexistence with each other. So what I see now with both Trump administration and the Biden administration and Chinese government is that now they both recognize there's a competition. So we see Secretary Blinken, we see President Biden has been saying quite a few times, we're going to compete with China, which is fine. China welcomes competition. I mean, in a friendly terms, always competition makes the world go around. I mean, we always welcome that. And so I think for the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, he actually said that this year, National People's Congress news conference, that China now recognizes there's competition. We certainly welcomes that. But also, I think both governments emphasize there's an area of cooperation. So using the term of Joseph Nye, he called this as competition, and so using the word of Graham Allison's cooperative rivalry, and so I think or rivalry partnership. So I think something like that probably we're going to be there. Whether we can reach the status of EU countries, like if you talk about economy, if you talk about rising, EU probably, European Union probably is the largest economic power in the world, but European Union doesn't have the problem with US on Houthi trap. So why China should have that? So I think that what can we really have a peaceful competition and but also friendly cooperation? That really is the ideal objective. So I think this competition narrative, which I think now is replaced what President Biden has been talking in the past about strategic rivalry or this kind of a very negative scent, and or CPC is ruling or whatever. So I think we probably have reasonable good start. I really hope that when Secretary John Kerry come to China next week, and we can really start some cooperation. For example, on the climate change, and President Biden is having this climate change summit on the World Earth Day on April 22nd. So he has invited the 40 heads of state to attend, including President Xi. So I'm sure that when they have this virtual face-to-face meeting, that'd be really great. Probably better than telephone calls that they can really talk about. And then Secretary John Kerry is actually come to Beijing. I'm sure they are going to work on that. And also China and the US actually is already working on as a leading group, leading countries for the G20 working group on climate change. So both US and China already talk on that, for recently now. So which is a good, again, another new sign of the two countries, trying to work together. And also I noticed that the Semiconductor Association of China, but also US, has actually starting some kind of working relationship. So we while we maintain our differences, while we're trying to understand each other better, but I think we really need to build up the trust. We really need to start from those common challenges, and also pandemic fighting as well. I mean, I see that President Xi actually last year pledged $2 billion in fighting COVID-19 with developing countries, with WHO. I'm very glad to see that President Biden at the G7 summit also pledged $2 billion for fighting pandemics through with developing countries and WHO. And also USA said, if needed, they can continue to support. So those shows really demonstrate a great leadership, I think, from the US side. And on this global pandemic fighting issues, I'm also glad to see the vaccine injection progress is doing well in the US. Probably has the highest percentage of people getting injected for vaccine than any other countries now. So you see, when Biden takes actions, he really, I think, stopped the isolation that previous government was actually created. He has really demonstrated his leadership, and also he has gained a lot of allies back. But also, started this dialogue with China. So I think it's really well noted on that. So that's the thing. The first point I want to raise is this competition. New thinking could probably, we hope that they're going to be there to stay, and that probably can guide us into a more pragmatic, realistic, cooperative kind of mode. The second point I want to make is that China is not what probably the old traditional way of thinking of or CPC or Communist Party of China, whatever. Probably, anyone who came to China, I mean, has been saying that what has happened in China in the last 4 decades is really a miracle. I mean, probably took many developed countries over 100 years or over several centuries to develop. China has really transformed China beyond recognition for any visitors or any people without really prejudice on that. For example, now China has become the second largest economy in the world. China is now the largest trading nation with 130 countries now. China has probably last year actually even contributed to the 50% of the world GDP growth during the pandemic year. It's the only economy only major economy keep the positive GDP growth. And China has really already one of the significant, according to the World Bank and the UN, that China has lifted over 800 million people out of poverty. That's an enormous challenge. Just imagine if China hasn't done well. China would probably, like some Middle East countries, and export refugees, export famine. That probably would be even bigger, devastating to the world than what has happened in China now. And so China is now also, in terms of infrastructure, China is doing extremely well. China has built 2/3 of the world's fast train network. So anywhere you go in China these days, it's just a few hours from Beijing to Guangzhou, 5-6 hours, Beijing to Shanghai, 4 hours. And so basically the whole country is within your reach during one day, anywhere you go. So, and also China has 1 billion smartphone users. And China has actually built up the 5 million 4G network and about 1 million 5G network. So technology-wise, China is expanding very fast. And also China has one of the remarkable things I think that China has done is China has provided basic Medicare for 1.3 billion people. That's probably the largest medical coverage in the world. And then provided the social security, some basic social security for over 1 billion population. So see the gain of the daily life is really the substantial achievement. So China is trying to avoid this gap between rich and poor. So that's why the current government, I mean, since 2012, when President Xi took over, they are emphasizing on elevating poverty. I mean, that's how they have done it, lifted 800 million people out of poverty. That's enormous, I think, achievement for the mankind. And of course, but also we see other countries, with population is rising, and so that's really unfortunate. Because the problem for that, I think, is that the gap between rich and poor is getting wider. Not only in the United States, where probably 1% of Wall Street equals to almost 50% of the general population's wealth, and in many other countries too. So China has realized that challenge. China has really trying to avoid this extreme poverty so that there won't be too much social unrest in China. So I think that is really been doing well. And also China is doing on this pandemic fighting as well. And China realized that the virus first broke out in Wuhan, and China has paid an enormous price for that. They shut down 11 million metropolitan for 3 months. Basically shut down, you can't get out of your home. And then shut down a 60 million Hubei province. And the whole country really, they've done a lot of experiment, quarantine, social distance, and massive testing and screening, big data. So finally, China has managed a way of containing virus. These days, there's no basically very rare have a local occurrence of the COVID-19 virus. So everything back to normal. Basically, the tourism, the people come to work. So I think that's why I'm going to say there's a lot of cultural difference, because China is the society thousands of years practiced some kind of collectivism. So that people willing to sacrifice a bit of the individual freedom for the sake of the community and for the well-being of the public, of the state. Whereas I think in Western countries there is a lot of individualism was stressed, individual freedom, human right, and everything. So that's why you see things probably wasn't really ideally controlled. So in the 21st century we have to give a lot of thought on the old thinking, old model of governance in the past that has been, for the last 100, 200 years when the economy wasn't that developed, one best way to make a decision is really have a one man, one vote. But I think, what China has done is they've been practicing consultative democracy. There is also a technology democracy. I call it technology democracy. Basically, everybody has a mobile phone. Anywhere you go, anything you buy, who to see, what to do. I mean, you are voting every moment with your mobile phone. And also, it's a market democracy. The economy, you can really produce whatever you want, and then very sufficient competition. China probably developed a kind of unique hybrid model of its economy, with 70% private sector, 60 to 70% private sector, entrepreneurs. And then you have about 15% multinationals, all the big multinational 500, Fortune 500, all in China. And then you have another 15, probably 20% of SOE, where they do a lot of basic work for covering the rural area. For example, the telecom, you have to go to the rural area, you can't charge very much. So they fulfill a lot of social responsibilities on that. So I think this kind of model has really sustained China pretty well. And also China has this very practiced thousands of years of culture of meritocracy. So any official, you can't just rise in from one speech or several speech or one campaign. You rise through the ranks of being a rural or a township or a county official, become a municipality and become a province, become a ministry, and then they come to the top. So they accumulated a lifetime experience of public servant doing all kind of management experience. So you see that's where everywhere now they have this great challenge, balance and check on the officials and meritocracy. You have to publish your resume on all the major media before you promote it, and then you have also opening of that. Any organization promote an official, they have 1 month of so-called display notice. Put it in a public domain, and if this guy has any problem, corruptions or any dirty things, they'll be exposed. They can be really changed or replaced or even punished. So I think this kind of a system really with one 5-year plan after another 5-year plan is really made China consistently working very, very fast. Without this interruption of party debates and a lot of debate, but then really can't get things done. So I think there's a lot of public merit to this kind of system, where I think Fukuyama-san was right. I mean, it's not the end of history. We probably should tolerate about different model, different system. Just as Deng Xiaoping said, it doesn't matter it's black and white or white cat, as long as it catches mice. So if this system can deliver the well-being for 1.4 billion people, if this system can really create a lot of wealth and contribute over 1/3 of a global GDP growth, probably we need to give a bit of more tolerance of that. But of course, China has to also has this global responsibility, needs to really demonstrate some responsibility to the world as well. For example, China now become the second largest donor to the United Nations. China actually, the Chinese vaccine has been injected in over 60, 70 countries now. China trying to provide some public goods on that, and China is also I mean, of course, there's still way for China to catch up in terms of how to make more contribution to the world. But basically, I think China is having all those things in mind is how we can work with all the countries together. Of course, there's a huge cultural differences. One of the things I think that we are very unfortunate to see is that the tourism coming to China is really getting smaller compared with 12 years ago, 13 years ago when they had the Beijing Olympic. It's still kept at the Beijing Olympic level. While China's outbound tourism has been double, triple, or quadrupled many times, with over 150 million people out of Chinese boundary, and 150 million people returned, not no people stayed overseas. So you can see the attraction of China these days. So people still like to stay here and that feel very working fine in this big country. And what I hope that is that we should have more international visits come to China. We should have more academic exchanges. I really hope there will be more U.S. students studying in China. There's only about 10,000 U.S. students studying in China, while they have 400,000 Chinese students studying in the U.S. We hope to have more tourism. We hope to have more dialogue. But also, I think the other thing is that China probably needs to upgrade its narrative as well. We need to really have a new theory, maybe have a new explanation of what has been done right in China, where we have problems, where we need to overcome. Maybe we can have a more international dialogue. We probably should mobilize all the players, NGOs, academics, think tanks, and social, cultural, art, artistic, all those exchanges. We should really strengthen that. That's probably the best for our, both countries. So that's the second part I would like to say is China has been rising or has been developing, but there seems there's a gap in both interpreting and explanation on both sides. I hope that we could do better on that, and we could have more find a better way to understanding of each other. Thirdly, I would like to say on global cooperation with U.S. and China, and I think U.S. and China has enormous areas to collaborate. I mean, we have this President Biden actually basically won his election largely on two promises. One is fighting pandemic. I think he really he has delivered that. He has he has quickly had this big campaign to fulfill his has so many Americans get injected a vaccine and things like that. And then the second is climate change. He sees this really as his mission. The first exact order he signed is to return to climate change Paris Agreement. So he is within 100 days of his office, he's calling this basically this global climate change summit, inviting 40 heads of state to have that meeting. He demonstrated his leadership there. I think so those areas really needs to work with China. Both pandemic, China has already developed a model of a pattern of how to contain the virus. Maybe some methodology adopted, maybe cultural wise, maybe different in China and Western countries. But some are probably universal, like quarantine, social distance, and massive testing and things like that can be applied. So I think there's a lot of area that China and the US can work together to help the whole world to stop this pandemic. We are really having this huge challenge on that, and also climate change. And China being the largest carbon emission country, and US being the second largest, both countries has the duties and responsibility to really work together. I think when President Biden was running for the office in last November, President Xi actually delivered his speech at the UN summit. That for the first time, China announced that China is going to achieve a carbon peak before 2030 and achieve carbon neutral before 2060. We need to notice that is before, not by. President Xi said before. So we don't know how many years can be before, but that actually China has set a target for that for the first time. And actually on the, this year is the 14 years 5 years plan, the first year of 14th 5 years plan. It's also a first year of a second centennial goal. See, China has a centennial goal. The first centennial goal has achieved last year, which means that they have already lifted 800 million people out of poverty. So I think that in the new 14th 5 years plan, they spell out all the details of how we can reach target again, and cut down the thermal, cut down the emission. People actually often doubted China can achieve that. I always give an example of Beijing, where I lived most of the time. For example, in Beijing, 10 years ago, Beijing is polluted by this heavy smoke. People really was really worried and scared and choked. See, this Beijing smoke is so famous. But I think since the 18th Party Congress, actually the one the new leadership comes up, they have been proposing a new concept, basically saying that green mountains and blue waters are the gold mountains, are the silver mountains. So basically, they realize that it's how badly the environment are. So they can really take actions on that. So they shut down many thermal plants and cement plants or those heavy polluted plants around Beijing. And so now you come to Beijing, basically you don't see much of the smoke in the whole year now, and the climate has greatly improved. So it shows how effective China's government can make things happen. So I think when top leadership said that they want to achieve carbon neutral before 2060, they mean it. They have to do it, and so I think that is really great. And so President Biden is calling this summit. I'm sure John Kerry now will visit China soon, and they will prepare an agenda. I'm sure they're going to have quite a good discussion at the summit, and also they're going to have some leading consensus probably to promote that at the G20 summit later this year. So that's something I see. But also I want to say that the other area, in addition to the climate change, we want to see the global governance. We need to really upgrade for that. For example, during the Second World War, after the Second World War, we had the Bretton Woods conference system, where we had the UN established, World Bank, IMF, WTO, GATT was then. So you see this American-led, UK-led, this first generation of global governance has really worked well. But now I think after 76 years of that running, I mean, we really need to upgrade this system to really fill the shortage of that. So can we have a new Bretton Woods moment? I really see a lot of opportunities there. For example, the infrastructure. President Biden just recently passed a $2.3 to $3 trillion bill calling for upgrade American infrastructure. And this is not limited to America. All the Western world, all the vast developing countries having this huge challenge of infrastructure. So even though we haven't had a world war to upgrade system, we had a worldwide virus war actually. So this worldwide pandemic will make us thinking how we can have a more green economy, how we can have a great infrastructure. Infrastructure is probably the least ideological and has most consensus. I mean, at least in the US, in addition to the bipartisan consensus on China, there is a bipartisan consensus on infrastructure. They all felt there's a need for infrastructure upgrade. And for example, we're talking to scholars at the Texas University. The infrastructure, for example, US and China have this trade deal, first one phase trade deal. And US wants China to buy a lot of energy product from US, either from Alaska or from Texas. But I noticed that the energy export from inland Texas to the Texas port, the price of that is double the price from port to China, because the inland of Texas, there's not enough sufficient infrastructure to ship all the energy product to the port, and then the port ship them to China. So you see, there's a huge opportunity for infrastructure cooperation as well. So what I can propose is that since there's a world consensus on infrastructure, and that could be leading us for the next several decades to basically to work on, we have some common objective to work on, and China has already accumulated a lot of experience on that. US has a lot of international experience and all those countries. So can we really, I'm thinking, can we set up a international infrastructure investment bank or global infrastructure investment bank? One of the easy way probably is that we can upgrade Asian infrastructure investment bank, and we can invite US and Japan to join that and jointly consulted and to work on that. Because this AIIB has already 103 international members, the largest membership. It's already become the second largest multilateral lending agency. It has all the Western countries in it, EU, German, UK, France and Australia, Canada, all the Western countries, except US and Japan. So I think, if we upgrade this global infrastructure investment bank from AIB, then we can really tackle the infrastructure shortage worldwide. And that probably give us another new momentum, new drive objective for us to fulfill. So I think we need to create a lot of common objective, common working plan, fighting pandemic, controlling climate change, and build the world into a better place with the infrastructure. So I think in this area, I think China and the US can really collaborate probably, and we can really work together to upgrade its global system, upgrade its global governance system. I mean, the World Bank and everybody is done fine, but the World Bank and other development banks also has other challenges, poverty alleviation, green development, climate change. But I think now we have one of the experience China has is China has really worked on the infrastructure for the last 4 decades. And then this infrastructure has really shortened the distance, has really greatly produced the efficiency, productivity. Everybody has a mobile phone on hand. It's like everybody has a small ERP. Everybody efficiency has greatly improved, and there's a synergy of that with all the infrastructure in place. For example, out of the 10 largest port, 7 of them are in China. Out of all the tallest bridges in the world, 80% of them in China. So I think this kind of experience China has can also benefit other world as well. But we need the world to work together on that. I think U.S. is always a leading country on global governance. I mean, let's have this world infrastructure investment bank to set it up to work with together. So I think that's the global governance that we can really work on. I think probably I'm going to just to summarize what I've been saying, and we'll leave some time for discussion. Is that I think U.S. and China are really great countries. One is the largest developed country, one is probably the largest developing country. Even though there's a saying China should be graduating from developing country, but that's still per capita wise, China is still very far behind. It's only 1/6 of what U.S. has now. But of course, since China has a 1.4 billion population, nobody in the world has governed has a really proven model to govern a 1.4 billion people, or maybe serving 1.4 billion people in the past. So what has been experimented in China, I think so far probably is okay, is that because is at least maintained the fastest growth for the last several decades. It maintained the great transformation of 1/5 of a global population. It has maintained positive growth contribution for the world economy, and also hopefully China will get along with everyone. I mean, historically, China was always a peace-loving country, always been neutral. That's Confucius always seek a neutral ground. Never occupied any countries. Never sent a soldier to any other countries. Even during the Ming Dynasty, which is several hundred years ago in the 14th, 15th century, China has a marshal which has led a 7 expedition fleet, traveled to Southeast Asia, traveled to almost Africa. They never colonized any places. China that's almost 100 years ahead of Columbus discovered American continent. So you see, Chinese philosophy and the culture, and its IND is more peace loving, and not really going to seek any expansion of that. So I understand there's some conflict, there's some disagreement, there's some criticism on China, but let's have a dialogue, have talk, and see what's going to happen on that. So I think I want to say that China and US are really a great partners if they work together, and then they can really make a world a better place. We can't have this trap happen. The other day when I talked to Graham Allison, he was basically saying no one wants to have this fight for this conflict, military conflict, because I was also talking to Darshan at the beginning that these days any people leaving these days, we don't have anybody has experienced the real war. The war, Graham Allison said, can destroy 40-50 million people. And so if the war is broke out, he said, when I was having dialogue with him, he said, the place that you are in Beijing is going to be gone. The place I'm in Boston is gone. The US is gone, China is gone. and it's terrible. It won't be. You know, we should not allow that to happen because people haven't really experienced this horrific war that you know, maybe, you know, that we would really have to prevent that because that is, you know, prosperity of the world is really at risk. So I think I'm going to finish here, and I want to once again thank you know, Dr. Kazi and also Dr. Daxuan to invite me, and I hope that we will have more dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Wang. That was inspiring and refreshing to hear your emphasis on what could be and what could happen through reconciliation and working together. There are some questions that are typed. I'd like to start though with one. Mm-hmm. You've talked about the need to ease the tensions and the possibilities of working together. I'd like to ask you, it's a two-part question. What one specific step would you like to see each country take to ease tensions?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kazi. Really great question. What I would like to see, I think that one of the things there's quite a few things they could do. First, I think this John Kerry's upcoming visit is extremely important. That sent an enormous signal that probably we haven't got a major U.S. Official visiting China for the last several years. So that is really great. That I'm sure they will not have like Alaska. They're going to talk on the business and on the climate change. So that can be done. The other things can be done on both sides. I think from both sides is that we can resume the consulate in Houston. We should resume the consulate in Chengdu. That's extremely important. I think that was, I don't know how that was shut down, was really a mistake. The second thing, we also should resume the journalists. There were some journalists expelled from US, also from China. I mean, you know, we need more coverage of those countries. So that we can really know what's going on. So I think those things are really important, particularly these two consulates. I mean, that serves a western part of China and western part of the US. So furthermore, I think that pandemic-wise, there's many things that can be done that because we should really have a climate, pandemic summit. Of some kind, and with WHO, and maybe we should coordinate a bit of this vaccine, COVAX, or helping developing countries, because I think until every country is safe, its own country can be finally safe. So even US got all injected, but then if other countries still, is widely spread, I mean, we still have a deadlock there. So I really want to see China and the US. Both are doing relatively well now, and to really take a good action and work with each other. And finally, on the climate change, I think this President Biden set up this 40-country mechanism is great. And I really think that now both US and China are leading this G20 group on climate change. I hope that the upcoming G20 will make some major progress on climate change if China and US on the same wavelength. So there's quite a few things can be done. And of course, also, we probably should tear down the rhetoric, the shouting match across Pacific, and also let more, scholars, academics, and NGOs and social groups talk about. So there's quite a few things we could work together.
Okay. Well, the second half of my question is implied by the first, and that is, what specific things would you caution either country not to do?
Yeah, that's another equally good question. What I think is we should do is that we should really reframe restricted, speak, very negative word. I mean, we experienced that when by the Trump administration. I mean, every day we wake up, there's a sanction on China. I think we should really limit the sanction tools rather than use this too often, too frequent. because we have to really prove the fact and investigate or have a more third-party observation, so that we don't easily sanction each other. I don't think that is really a good idea, because that really basically we accelerate the tension, and also we should avoid of sending public aircraft or the military exercise along the borders of each other, which is also no good, which also creates tension. So I think there's quite a things can be done, and we should calm down, have a more this kind of visits and dialogue, so we can really stop this downward spiral and stabilize the relation. That's probably the most important.
Yeah. Just as a comment, the saddest figure that I heard from your lecture is that I know there are about 400,000 Chinese studying in America, but that there are only 10,000 students from the United States in China is a damning and discouraging number. We certainly need to increase the exchange of students, and in my country to expand the teaching of Chinese language in the United States. I think that would go an enormous distance to ease the tensions and narrow the chasm between the nations. There are some questions that have come in. I encourage people to type in if we don't have much time, because Dr. Wang has to go to another meeting at the conference. But this is a specific question, and I'm just going to read it. The so-called wolf warrior diplomacy has been criticized by analysts outside China as part of China's assertive and aggressive foreign policy. But inside China, it seems to enjoy strong support. This sounds like the United States. Should China keep this type of diplomacy or return to a more low-key foreign policy as advocated by Deng Xiaoping?
Yeah. Yes, thank you for that question. I see there's quite a few questions. I can answer that, no problem. And what I see that is that there's probably on both sides there's some improvement. But one is that China has been rising, developing for decades. Probably, some people think, oh, China used to be very low profile, doesn't really speak much at the international events or talk very much. But you see, China now is the whole young generation has come up. There's a social media. There's 800 million netizens and things like that. China become more vocal. The domestic demand, the domestic pressure is also strong. So I think that probably some government officials, when China got to this magnitude and this size, they probably has to reflect some of that, and in terms of in the exchange with the world. But whether that should be all at the same level or at every place, that probably can be discussed. But I do think that people shouldn't use the old view, or Deng Xiaoping era's view to view what has been happening in China. Because if you talk about the per capita, you talk about development, you talk about China, it's totally transformed from 20, 30 years ago. Just for example, China's GDP has gone up 12 times in the last 20 years. Since China, joined WTO. So I would think that Chinese voice, being a diplomatic voice or whatever, would reflect some of that. But also, I think China is a more country is more culturally collectively. So individually, don't like to speak very much. Even I'm sure you probably have experience when you're teaching in a class. Your American student is very spoke out, whereas Chinese students are shy, sometimes don't talk, or maybe more conservative. So in a case like that, if they are overwhelmed by Western or some Western media's attacks or criticism, there's not many Chinese people saying that. So you end up only the officials probably come out to defend, and then that gives an impression, oh, Chinese official maybe talking too much. So there's several reasons for that. But of course, I think that China certainly needs a better narrative, need a more theory to explain China's logic, why China is cultural-wise, historical-wise, and philosophical-wise, and value system. Why things work in China, why other system may not work in China. I mean, let's have more experiment. Let's have more tolerance. So I think there's several reasons for that. But certainly the Western media needs to be more accurately portray China as well. They really need to come to China without a lens, maybe really see China from different angles. So I think there probably work can be done on both sides to improve that.
There's a question here relating to that. Can climate talks be a common meeting point to springboard U.S.-China improvement in relations? Do you think it might be the only common ground for now?
I certainly think we need to start something good. I was giving a 20-minute interview to BBC the other day, specific on this topic, which I'm saying that. Yes, absolutely. We need any bit of good news is good news, because we haven't got any good news on bilateral relations. All negative, one after another, reinforce each other. We really need some uplifting. And I think John Kerry, who knows China very well, who is a great champion of climate change. I talked to him. I know how he really view that. He is a great contributor to the Paris climate change deal. He said he has met President Xi and the Chinese leadership many times for this topic. So he's really dealing with the real challenge facing the mankind, rather than we are really talking about those geopolitical differences or even geopolitical conflict. Let's talk about some real conflict. Let's talk about this common threats. So that's one area I think we can really lift some confidence on, where China and US has the global moral duties to do that. Whereas also the other thing is this pandemic. The pandemic has kept us shut down. I want to see, I want to visit US. I haven't been able to visit for the last year now. And the year before last year, I visited 4 times US. So, I mean, it's really sad to see that. So we hope that, US, China, and EU and many other countries can work together. United Nations, WHO can keep this really under control, but also prevent in the future to happen. So that's the other area we can have a positive discussion. The third area is that great lifting would be resume this consulate in Houston and Chengdu. I just came back from Chengdu. Actually, I grew up in Chengdu. I was in Chengdu last week. So many people complain to me, say, "Oh, now I'm going to the US. I cannot go to Chengdu to apply my visa. No, I have to go to Beijing. No, it's such a nuisance." I mean, so many people young people was not happy about that. I mean, let's do something on those things. So there's quite things. I think once we start some positive, we hope that will happen. We turn this, stabilize the relation, even it's competitive and cooperative. But let's not deteriorate that.
Here's a very interesting and tough question that came in. Are there any insoluble problems between the countries?
I think that that's something I'm a bit realistic on that now, and where I see, as Graham Allison told me, that of course there's always a bit of a rising power trying to catch up with ruling power, existing power. There's always some kind of a conflict. For example, he tabled that out of the 16 cases, 12 of them end up being some kind of conflict. Of course, whether that's academically complete still to be discussed. But I think there are also 4 cases are exceptions. We talk about this also. One case we discussed together about is Song Liao in Asian China, where they have actually managed about 200 or 300 years peace. They signed a peaceful agreement. What I see that is that whereas when American take over UK, I mean they really hasn't had a big conflict. What I see that is that So there's some conflict there. There's always been some, that's the structural problem, challenge we have to face. Second is this ideological value system. So this Oriental Confucius Cultural Society, East Asian Cultural Society, I had a very impressive, I attended a very impressive cocktail with a former US ambassador to China, Terry Branstein. He has his farewell party. Basically, he said the Chinese economic success, he attributes to three factors. One is the hard working. I mean, in China, you come, 724, 996, whatever. It's everybody's busy. There's no long holidays or enjoying half months, but people easily take days off. All the time, they're working, still working very hard. So that's number one, hard working. Second is this family value, Terry said. China attaches great importance to respect seniors, to respect the hierarchy, and so people are really willing to maybe even make a little sacrifice, but then maintain a good order of that, of the universe or the stability. So that's probably different than the Western country. Thirdly, is China attaches great importance to education, because China has every year have 9 million college graduates, and for the last 4 decades, China already trained 170 million people, the largest probably highly skilled workforce in the world, and that driving China's development as well. So you see that is actually now with only one child for the last generation. Yeah. Several generations working on a child education. Now, any more you go in China, there's less shops now. There's more training classes, dancing classes, English classes. There's 200 million people study English in China, largest English studying country in the world. So all those things really made China somewhat different, and then probably explain part of China's success. But if that is all interpreted as autocracy or CPC, dictatorship, or things like that, then the two camps has a very different views, and it's really difficult to match the consensus. So what I think is we really should expand this tourism. We should really expand these student exchanges, and more people come to China to know China and they understand. So hopefully, if we have more understanding, and also if we have economically intertwined. For example, Tesla almost become the largest company in the world last year because they have this factory, newly clean energy automobile in production in China. Very well. That's where they happen. So that's really I think that we need to understand the ideologically value system. So probably I think the it's not the end of history is absolutely right. We probably should see somewhat different models or different development path that China experiment that's suitable for China. China never said it's going to export that or going to promote that to the other country. China wants to, keep its own work at home and to really satisfy its own people's demand. So that's probably, that has to be better understood outside China.
Mm-hmm. There's one more. I know we promised we'd let you get back to your meeting. I don't want to take all your time. There's one question I wasn't going to read because it's a little bit serving.
I saw that. No problem. Yeah. On Xinjiang, right? I mean, I heard that. Yes.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay.
This was about Confucius, because you mentioned Confucius, and as the lawyers say, you opened the door to this question. There's a question that said, would you be willing, I think it was to me, to recommend where we can find resources very similar to the Confucius Institute, and why did the Institute get shut down? My question to you is, a personal statement. I became involved with China through the Confucius Institute. 14 years ago, I started at our university, the first Confucius Institute in Texas. And all of those in Texas have now shut down for a variety of reasons that I think are sad, because it promoted the kind of interaction you're talking about. I don't know how China views the problem in America with the Confucius Institutes, but do you think it would be possible for our two nations to get together and create complementary institutes, an American institute in China and a Confucius Institute in the United States, to serve the very purpose you've been talking about, to promote interaction and learning at the level of education?
Yes, thank you for that question. Very, very, very deep thinking question. What I think is that there could be some problem there, is that China has been doing very well in China. For example, China have this, in the Chinese society, they normally have a bit strong government-led initiative. So that is totally acceptable in China, because China, thousands of years, has always a strong central government, and government is really been an integral part of, a very important part of the society as well. So even for this pandemic fighting, infrastructure or all those great things happen in China, the government coordination, government consistent working on that is really proved to be quite successful in China. But this Confucius Institute, of course, the Chinese government actually initially supported that. Probably that has been viewed in the Western society, particularly in the US, because people like small government, people like no government intervention, no government involvement, which I think the model may work very well in China, may not be really practical outside China. So that's where probably there's some different views on that. And the other thing is that I think, in order to improve on that, we could have, privatize some Confucius Institute, or maybe have other multilize the sources of funding, and maybe some internationally acceptable practice, like US, you have a Fulbright scholar system. Why can't we have a Confucius scholar system? Yeah. And things like that. We can diversify it, and so several ways to do that. So I think they are changing a bit of that now. So now the Confucius Institute become a foundation. They want to publish through in the future with more variety. I think they are thinking about that, and then they are thinking how to improve on that. But also sometimes the interpretation in the U.S. go to extreme. Oh, those Confucius Institute are spies, or trying to do bad things. Not necessary. So I think there's a lot of gap there that we need to understand each other, find a mutually acceptable way to do that. And always, we need that. Maybe in China, we have a 70s center, we have, Alliance Française, we have UK Cultural Center, we have all the international centers subsidized by the government. Why not that in China is not a problem, whereas Confucius Center in the US is a problem? So, we are lacking a good communication on that. I think that leads to a lot of problem. Also, I saw there's a question on Xinjiang. I also probably can mention a few words. I think that there's already 2,000 foreign visitors been to Xinjiang, and one of the ambassadors told me he visited Xinjiang. He said he never saw more mosque temples in Xinjiang than in any other countries that he has visited. So I think that there were several years ago, there's a huge terrorist attacks everywhere. Hundreds of people lost lives. I think China's government has never dealt that question before. They have experimented some ways to contain that, of course. But of course, maybe there's a lot of criticism. And then the Chinese government announced last year, all the trainees in the education schools has all been graduated already. So that has been announced again and again. So they welcome foreigners to visit Xinjiang, journalists or ambassadors, and if they are not coming with a poor conclusion, they are all welcome to visit. And I was talking to Tom Friedman. He was saying, oh, maybe New York Times can send a team there. I'm sure if that's possible, that'd be great as well. So I think of course there's some personal account outside China, but I don't think that is a statistically significant, big enough case. For example, let's talk about 1 million, 2 million, or 3 million Uyghurs locked up and things like that, or even call that genocide. But what's the proof of that? Where does this first 1 million, 2 million citation comes from? I really don't know. I mean, who said that? Or they said there's some satellite pictures, but satellite picture, there's a lot of empty buildings in China. China is always building a lot of buildings, a lot of empty buildings there. You can't just estimate there's a big building that there must be 10,000 people in it. No, I mean, those buildings, even from satellite, looks empty as well. So I really hope that we can have a solid cases, not just anecdotes, individual account. There's always people not happy. Of course, China can do better. I'm sure Xinjiang government can do better as well. But really, we need a more understanding. So I think this U.S. President Biden announcement, they're going to pulling out all the troops of Afghanistan is great, because that's where many years ago, where's the Xinjiang, terrorists based on or maybe influenced by them. So that's neighboring Xinjiang as well. So I think if we can really solve the regional tension, we're used to also some people join ISIS from Xinjiang. So I think this international attention on Xinjiang will certainly make China more aware of that, and of course continue to improve on that. And but not unproportionally saying it's a genocide. Compare that with Hitler or something like that, which is not accurate, I think.
Well,
I'd like to ask the last question if possible.
Yes, I was going to ask Hsuan to ask the last question.
Sure.
I know you're very short of time now, but I want to go quickly. I think it's an important one. Graham Allison talked about the Thucydides trap and the examples he gave that two powers will eventually come to war. But all the examples that he cited don't have two ingredients. One, they don't have climate change. With climate change, we don't know whether we're going to last to the 22nd century if we continue. And that's number one. Secondly, the two powers in all the examples he talked about were not nuclear powers. Each could destroy the world. So with these two issues, can we, especially US and China, can come together and have some sense and say that we cannot have wars?
Absolutely. No, I think you are right. I mean, the circumstances and the historical settings are quite different than it used to be.
It's profoundly different.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think that is really true. And but still, I think his alarm was also his warning is also make people thinking as well, because I think even though all those technological advance has changed, or even nuclear deterrent has they been there, I think there's a little different than the Soviet Union Cold War time, whereas both Soviet Union and US and the Western Allies out of the Second World War. Right. That's why even though they had this Cold War, they still talk down, they still conduct many rounds of disarmament, and the arms control agreement has reached. Right. So there was aware of how cruel, how terrible the war was. But now any living beings now, undoubtedly still many alive now who has experienced the real, worldwide war. So I think we really need to avoid that. But also I'm worried about this chain of command. That for example, if you have this aircraft to carry circulating Taiwan Strait or China, you have an airplane flying over too often, too many times. There could be a little clash somewhere, and then escalation may happen. Human beings' nature sometimes hasn't been really changed that much. So that I still worry about that. For example, I don't know why there was a bomb of the Chinese embassy at Yugoslavia, many years ago. So let's avoid this close contact, short distance of conflict, because even though the top leadership doesn't want to get into that, but maybe the middle layer or the middle commander maybe or lose control, or maybe somebody's crazy, commit a suicide or something, push the button. We may start into an unnecessary and deadly war. So I'm still worried about that. I really think we should avoid that, because after all, you're right. China now has the 50% of the tallest buildings in the world. I mean, China probably is the least one to get into the world. You have 3 gorgeous dams. You have the longest ocean bridge in the world. Same as with U.S. The prosperity and peaceful life people join for generations. We'll be ruined if we don't really take this seriously. So also even technical decoupling is not necessary, because we are intertwined with shared prosperity. If we technically develop, if we have technical, it also is really no good. So I really think that we should have a rational thinking, and more kind of a dialogue and exchanges are really needed on both countries in many aspects, in many fields, and in many different groups as well.
Dr. Wang, thank you so much. Before Thucydides, there was a Greek historian named Herodotus. Mm-hmm. And Herodotus was the first, quote, Western writer and thinker to go to Asia in order to understand it. And the preface to his great work, The Histories, was he was writing to celebrate the remarkable achievements of both East and West and explore the causes for friction between them. And thank you for being a modern Herodotus. You have talked about the possibilities of a better world through the collaboration of East and West, while being very aware of the frictions that could stop or even halt that progress. I hope that your voice of optimism prevails both in China and the United States. Thank you so much for visiting with us and for your thoughtful, reasoned, and inspiring remarks. And I hope to see you at the next International Advisory Council of the Center for Asian Studies. Good night, everybody, and good morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kratz. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Daxian. Thank you all. Thank you very much.